Hello, my love. Welcome. Let's talk about divine feminine. I've been receiving quite a few requests on this topic. Women reaching out to me who want to connect deeper to the divine feminine. And because this is such a broad topic and a broad statement, I wanted to make this video for you to help to understand what is it that you actually want to connect to, because what's divine feminine, how does it look practically, and also to help you get disillusioned from any kind of stereotypical misrepresentation that you may see in the world that you think the divine feminine is. So before you set your intention to go deeply connect to the divine feminine, I want you to understand what the fullness of it and what you are wanting to hold. So the most important question is, what is it that you want? On a practical level, what would it look like when you connect into the divine feminine? What is it that you're looking for? You're looking for better relationships, more intimacy in your life. You're looking to find a lover of your life. Are you looking to become a better mother? You're looking to become more of a feminine leader so that you're not burning yourself out from just this kind of a go way place, but at the same time you are holding yourself to high to your standards, and you are going into the world from that kind of sacred place that the truth is. And there's so many more things that you have to understand for yourself what it is. Do you want to heal your sexuality? Do you want to feel more accepting of your body, of yourself? Do you want to heal your mother wound? And this is important because based on what you understand for yourself that you want, you will then attract the support. And maybe you've reached out to me, and by the time I speak of what I see the divine feminine is, you would be like, oh, yeah, this is not what I want. And then you go and you find the people who you are attracted to. And the thing is that the divine feminine is everything, right? It's just so big that oftentimes we just see a half of it. Oftentimes and that's why I don't like the statement divine feminine. I like more like sacred feminine, because divine feminine, sometimes people feel like it's something angelic, something that's just so sacred that you can't even touch. And it's almost like, to me, it's sort of like a patriarchal feminine where she is so innocent, so beautiful, so patient and loving, and that's all she is. But that's just taken half, if not less, of her. And I think if the divine feminine could get offended, she would get offended if that's what is thought of her, because she's so much bigger. And in her bigness, in her richness, is her power. And we're going to talk about this. So that's the first question. What do you mean by divine feminine? And what is it that you're looking for yourself in your practical life to experience? Because that's what's most important. There's no such thing as divine feminine without you experiencing it. So here are a few things that I would constantly work on when I work with women privately or in groups. And I also noticed some resistance to some of those things. But hey, if you came here for divine feminine, that's what you're working on. One is your connection to the body. Like, you cannot connect to the feminine and not be connecting to your body and not be doing any kind of embodiment practices. That's again more of a, you know, kind of a divine masculine or patriarchal masculine kind of way of, you know, looking at the feminine. No, feminine is all about the body, because here's the thing. If masculine is about the idea, the feminine is all about the creation. Everything that exists or can have a potential to exist. So it's this circulation of life, right? At the birth and death and birth and death and birth and death, all of this physical and what's about to be physical, what was physical, etc., right? So everything that was manifested. And at the same time, nothingness, but from a place of potential that could be. So in this case, the material, and our body is our main material kind of existence. We have other things that are material, but our body is our first before anything else. So if we want to connect to matter, the divine feminine, the mother, we need to connect to the body. So the divine feminine experience would have to come through the embodied experience. So you have to do some sort of embodiment practices. And yes, of course, like going to the gym, walking, yoga, all of those things, they're also great. I don't really think there's specifically, you know, like you only have to dance or, you know, do something super gentle. But it has to come from a state of pleasure, not this sort of like, not the push going over your body, making, you know, yourself struggle just to get to the place somewhere. That's not a feminine expression of the embodiment. The feminine is the one that's constantly in the state of joy or pleasure, or is seeking that. So body is one of the things, and through the body we do everything. We move our emotions, we work with our shadow, we connect to our intuition, to, you know, the spiritual guidance. We activate our, you know, like a medicine woman gifts. It's all done through the body. This is our treasure. So if you're not willing to go into that space, and you may have the resistance, the internal resistance, that's understandable. I had that. It's okay. But if you have the desire, you can get through it, especially with the proper support, right? So I already spoke about the medicine woman, right? So we activate that sort of like the healer within us that can see the cause and effect of something that is in the physical world, in this physical body, and we can, you know, address those things not only through some sort of substances or like herbs, but just through understanding how the energy works. And some of you will be more strong in, you know, some aspects of the feminine and less in others, which is also okay, because we don't always have to carry all of the gifts at equal measure, but we want to have access to all of them and making sure that we are certainly not resisting them, because there may be some sort of fear that is unconscious that's holding us back, and it's basically closing our connection to the experience and embodiment of the divine feminine. Another thing that I already mentioned that is connected to the body is our sensuality, our experience through the senses. The feminine is the spiritual experience embodied. It's not us escaping the body, being like, oh my God, I can't get rid of this, you know, body karma. Once again, I've been born here. I want to get rid of this. No, it's like, oh my God, like this is a beautiful creation and I want to savor it. And so, yes, of course, we may have a lot of programming. We may have a lot of negative, you know, programming. We may have a lot of whatever, sexual even traumas, and we work with that. in order for us to open up to that feeling of safety that we can experience pleasure, sexual or non-sexual, but it's still something that is absolutely like, there's no way into the feminine without that. So pleasure, this archetype of the lover, is also that it is something that is connected to the divine feminine. You can't get rid of it. So another thing that I also mentioned is the spiritual connection, the intuition. I can say that, you know, being a woman is a spiritual act already. And that spirituality comes from within. Our spirituality is that we already know deep inside our worthiness as the sacred gift to this world. Again, you may not know this right now, you may not embody that feeling, but that's what the feminine holds. As a divine child of God. That's what we're working on. If you're not there, that we're cultivating that. And then as a divine child of God, then you are just so, you know, you have the right to receive all the gifts and treasures and pleasures. And the intuition leads, so which means that we have to, when we know something is right within, like we are internally driven. We're not externally driven. Somebody told us we need to do something. You need to, you know, in order for you to make good living, you need to get this profession. That's being externally driven. That's if you want to be average, because those are average kind of approximations, right? But if you want to be just from the core, from within, then you looking from within and connecting to the inner talents, those and potentials, because many talents you have tapped in and many you have blocked when you were a child. So through the process of healing, especially through the body, you're then starting to dig out some of the talents that you were like, whoa, they're so innate to you, and for some reason you were still not noticing them. So intuition leads means you from within making decisions first. And in order for that to be, and for everything, for the strong divine feminine being embodied in a woman's body, you need to have a very strong masculine side. Because without that strong masculine side, you would not be able to survive in this world that is so overly masculine, that is not yet protective of your feminine. So you have to be protective of your feminine. So we can't, when we're going into our connection with the divine feminine, we must learn a very strong connection to our inner masculine, so that it can protect our feminine. And once we feel that protection, because we won't feel that protection from the world, most likely you're lucky if you have that around you, and eventually you will attract that when you can also emit that. When you can hold that for yourself, you will then attract people like that around you who will honor, respect, and protect your masculine, your feminine, excuse me. So then with that inner masculine protecting the feminine, she can flourish more, even more into her talents. And it's a continuous exploration and continuous opening and or deepening and deepening, whatever you call it. And that process will never stop. That's what divine feminine is, and connection to the divine feminine also is. To be a warrior of love is another aspect. What practically would it look like? Is when you see something is not done right, something is done that is hurting others or you, you speak up. So oftentimes we think of the feminine as sort of like the submissive. No, the divine feminine in her healthy expression and embodied through, in a woman's body, is absolutely a warrior. But she's not a warrior with weapons of, those that distract each other. Her weapon is love. But that love doesn't mean that she's accepting of some bullshit that's done towards her, towards others. And we see that oftentimes in the work environment, women struggle to speak up. Women struggle to say what they want, what they need, to ask for raise. So the divine feminine and connecting to the divine feminine would bring you to a place where because you so deeply know that truth, that connection to the spiritual that we spoke just earlier, you know what's right. And it's not right from this place of duality. And that's very hard to tap in right now with just using the words. That's why we use the connection to the body. But it's that sort of like the ultimate truth, the one that serves everyone. Whenever we're serving just one part of the whole, it's not a full love. If we say this are good but this are bad, we're not saying that. That's not full love. But there's something where when I speak up, even if my boss would be offended or would feel like, oh my God, I'm like attacking him or something, that is an invitation for him to go into some sort of maybe contemplation and maybe change his behavior in the future. So even though in the moment it's uncomfortable for him and it feels like it's not love towards him, it's actually love on the long run. Do you see that? Because it hurts for people to be out of integrity, whether they know it or not. And when we see things being done out of integrity and we don't speak up, then we're hurting not only ourselves, we're hurting everyone else. And it's our responsibility. Again, that's why we need a very strong masculine to be able to say that, to stand up. To embrace your shadows is another aspect that we absolutely work on when we go into the deep feminine or the divine feminine. And by embracing the shadows, I don't just mean like, oh, some things about you that are like, ooh, icky and sort of like, okay. No, you constantly work on them. You constantly work on them in a way where you don't just know them, but you don't let them run the show. You have a loving conversation, like there's tactics and techniques that we, in my private work, and I'm sure other experts offer when they offer you support. But it's not just, basically you have to always go into the uncomfortable place with the ego. And the shadow is the ego. So when we face something about ourselves that doesn't feel good, and then we have that discussion and conversation with that part of ourselves, and then we still, kind of work our way through to stay in integrity, to stay in love. And not suppression of the shadow, not judgment of those parts, not separation of those parts, because that's basically what we mainly see, is that we are separated of those parts. Then we also have another side of the pendulum nowadays, is where, okay, this is me and that's all. I accept myself. And so we allow ourselves to shit all over, excuse my language. But that's just kind of how it looks. And that's not done out of integrity. That's not taking responsibility, and that's not divine feminine, because there is no love there. There's just still ego running the game. And there's nothing wrong with the ego, and we're not judging the ego, but at the same time, we're not letting a little kid run around with, with the a bottle of fuel and a lighter, right? So we go, even if it feels uncomfortable, we go there. That's what means working with the shadow. And when it feels uncomfortable, we go there even more eagerly, because we know, oh my God, this is where my next expansion is. This is where I can unite more with myself, where I can become even more whole. But I would have to surrender my ego and feel like, oh my God, I'm like, for a moment, maybe, or for a few, that, oh my God, I'm like the worst person ever. And then, okay, and then how we can change it then. And like I said, you know, this is, here I'm not giving you the tools on how, because it's quite deep work. So don't take just a couple of words and expect you understood the process, but I'm just giving you what you would need to know if you're looking to connect to the Divine Feminine. That's the work. What else? Well, the unconditional love, I always speak of that. The unconditional love is something that is basically seeing the wisdom from a higher perspective onto the polarized situation. And polarized situation would be where there is a victim and where is a perpetrator. Either you on one side or the other, or you just seen it in the world. And instead of, and at the same time, you're validating each side. You're able to feel love for both sides. For the victim, yes, of course, but also for the perpetrator. And from that place, then you can experience the state of unconditional love, where you raise yourself beyond the duality. The feminine is beyond duality. And that's what we do in Tantra, right? We bring the two polarities, and then it goes into something else when the union happens. So those are the things that I want you to know, that if you're looking to connect with the Divine Feminine and authentically, and look for teachers, mentors, or guides who you want to receive that support from, those would be the things. There are probably more right now. It's not like I'm just giving you a full-on lecture on this, but those some things that just came to me very strongly that I need to speak of. And if you see some, I see some videos, some content on the topic of connect to your feminine and how to dress, how to look classy, all of these things. It's just, I want to say it's just, you know, cutting a half of it, but really it can even hurt. Because what are we feeding to? Because the Divine Feminine is about being, like I said, is about knowing her worth, just as she is. Just as she is, her worth is not changeable. Then she wants that to be expressed, and she wants to be that inner beauty that she feels to be expressed even more out. But if she feels that kind of externally driven, and she makes decision from somebody telling her, well, you know, like you have some sort of age-related changes to your body, so like you want to keep your Divine Feminine beauty, etc. So you need to do some sort of work done on yourself. Then it's just not true. And I'm not saying you shouldn't do it or it's wrong. That's not even the point, because the point is where it's coming from. Is it coming from a state of I'm not enough, so I need to fix myself? Or is it coming from a state, you know, I'm just in love with myself? I'm already, and so beautiful. And most of the time, especially in the current society, all of the things that we are bombarded with are coming from a place where they tell us we're not enough. There's something wrong with ourselves that we need to change. You need to lose weight. But again, or, there's nothing wrong with you, so you can just stay where you are and not take care of yourself. That's also not what I'm saying. But there's just this kind of a beautiful interplay. Hi, Tatiana. Talking here, almost finished on the topic of the Divine Feminine. Maybe you'll come back and listen to it. I think you like it. So, do you give yourself a space to regularly practice those things that I just mentioned? All of them. The body, the intuition, your strong inner masculine, your sensuality, your medicine woman, your warrior woman, and whatever else I spoke, you're embracing the shadow, the unconditional love. Like, do you regularly give yourself to practice this? Because if you don't, most likely you won't get into the divine feminine state, because we just don't have examples of embodied, divine feminine women. So and our conditioning is the opposite. So we're like very much in a toxic feminine and toxic masculine and all of that stuff. So if you're not giving yourself the support through some sort of resources, through people that inspire you, communities that inspire you, whatever they are, right? This may not be the community for you, but you just know there is some, and so go look for it. But then you won't have the space for that feminine to come out. Because she needs the community also. She needs that kind of state of sisterhood. And it doesn't mean that you always have to create everything together. No, maybe you are the type that creates by yourself, but still there's some space that you share together where you feel the sisterhood, where you feel like you're working for the community, because the feminine is all about the community and the whole, right? She's about the whole, because everything of the divine feminine, everything is the child of her. Every plant, every bug, every human. If we connect to the greater mother, right? I'm not talking about just the physical person. So yeah, those are the things. So I want to say, this is something to not be missed. And you find what works for you. I will share with you right now a couple of things on how, if this work and what I say calls your heart. And I know some of you have been asking me about how you can work with me, so I'm going to share a few things, because there are a few options and they all serve different functions. So and some functions you would need to kind of go into, and some functions maybe you already cleared and you have the support in those somewhere else. So one thing is our Radiant community. And with the Radiant community, which, by the way, this is going to be our second month, and it's kind of a monthly membership, but you can come in anytime, you can leave anytime. And that one is all about the embodiment. It's for those who feel like, okay, yes, maybe you even know some feminine embodiment practices, but you just don't have the will to practice them, or something like this, or maybe you don't even have so much of knowledge in that area and you want to deepen it. That's the place, because we meet 3 times a month, and in this time I give you unique practices. And every month there's something new, so you start collecting them and you start creating your own library. You understand what works for you. You start connecting to your body on this deeper level. And the way how we work is we work through chakras. So every month we focus on one chakra, because that work is important. Yes, there's way more than 7 chakras, absolutely. But still you have the physical body, and so we want to start with that. And so this month is about sacral chakra, what can be more feminine than sacral chakra. And we have so much wounding on that space. And so we work in the Radiant community on healing through the embodiment. And also we work with our psychology through the body, because chakras are related to our psychology. So we identify some limitations and blocks and patterns that we've been probably carrying for most of our life, at least with the root and sacral. That's basically, from birth almost. And then we finally address them. And some of those things you can't address mentally, especially when it comes to the lower chakras. You won't heal them mentally, because any wounding that happened during the pre-verbal stage. So it's in the body. So we heal through the body. That's also where we connect to the medicine woman within. And my role in all of the work that I do is always to teach you how to do things so that you can do them on your own by yourself, and you don't need me for the rest of your life or somebody else. I want to give you the tools to activate that wisdom from within, because that's my greatest joy, to see everyone in alignment with their truth and speaking exactly what they feel is true for them, or acting or creating the projects, right? So then that is something that we are starting again tomorrow, which is Wednesday the 12th. We do meet in online once a week for 3 weeks in a row on Wednesdays, but we also have the recordings for those, because some are not able to join live. Then we have recordings for that. And then we also have a group chat, because it's really, there's something about that, sisterhood container where you're able to speak of things that maybe you were even like ashamed, or you never thought they were so important. You start speaking that in the safe space, in the container where you feel like you won't be judged. It's already very healing. Those who know, those know. Then for those who are craving even deeper personal connection with, physical touch, non-sexual, but physical touch, being held, being also expressed with their creativity, even if maybe you don't think you're creative at all, but you have that craving, or you like being around people who are expressing them creatively, then that means you are creative. That we do. Then I offer in-person deep feminine tantric experiences, and those spaces are really hard to explain what they are, because they're very mystical in one way, but they are also obviously very embodied. I mean, there is movement, there is breath work, there is some traditional tantra breath work, as well as more of kind of like new explorations of sensuality and our self-expression. This is an opportunity for those who feel like they want to be heard, be seen, and maybe it's terrifying, and it usually is. Still, you crave that, then come into that kind of in-person gathering. And I'm located in Monroe, New York, and I offer this at usually different places, but right now this next one, which is on July 23rd, is on the property of Ananda Ashram, which, if you haven't been here before, I highly encourage you to come for my experience, or just in general, because this is a beautiful space and you can make yourself a retreat. It's open a whole year, and you can just rent a room, you can just have this space for yourself, practice yoga, practice meditation. It's beautiful, and I'm happy to help you with your accommodation here and how to, you know, all the logistics if you need and if you're interested. So, and then of course, for those who are serious and really eager in going into this work and want to have a private support, then I invite you to my private mentorship. This is a 6-month container. It is that long because for you to go deeper into that deep feminine state with all of the things that I mentioned, and also release all of the conditioning that you have up until now, and maybe not all of it, but at least like learn how to handle those things, we need a lot of time. But it's a premium support. I give a lot of love, a lot of attention, a lot of resources that are not just, you know, during our sessions, but all throughout. We are on a voice messaging app. We communicate all the time for those who want, right? I'm not kind of pulling you into it, but I'm there for you when you need me. Because there's a lot of things that arise in the process, then just waiting for a session, it's just gonna go away. Like this is where we want to be exercising our feminine. The feminine is about being in the moment. It's not about planning, okay, for the next session I need to come up with this kind of questions. No, like in the moment it's coming, and we'll work through that in the process. That's when it's most ripe to work with. So those are the 3 types of containers. I have other containers, but just specifically about the deep feminine, that I like to call it the sacred feminine, or maybe you like to call it divine feminine. Those are the options. And by the way, of course, in my private mentorship, the Radiant community is already complimentary, because I want you to experience this space of sisterhood and also have more of embodiment, because in our private work we go deeper into our shadow, we go deeper into activating your talents, into exercising your masculine, etc., and, you know, speaking your voice, being your warrior, etc. There's lots of things to do over there, but this part of the embodiment and the sisterhood group experience I really want you to experience. So then I invite you and highly encourage everyone who is in my private containers to be joining the Radiant calls, because they are just complementary. I would say they're essentially coming together. But of course, that's everyone's choice. I'm not pushing you into anything that you are not ready to experience. So I think on this note, I'm going to end my talk here. There's always much more that can be said, but we need to know when to stop and when to continue. So until next time, I wish you the most wonderful night, filled with deep state of gratitude for yourself, for your body, for this life, for everything that's around you, for the gifts that you hold right now and that are available for you already in this given moment, your talents, the beautiful people, the love that's everywhere,